Welcome, IT Changemakers, to the DEX Show with Tim Flower and Tom McGraw. Let's get into it.
Welcome back to the DEX Show. It is May, which not only means that it is getting a lot sunnier, it also means that it is Nexthink 20th anniversary celebration month. That's right. Nexthink is 20 years old, if you can believe that. And whether you listen to the DEX Show, as you obviously do, whether you go on the DEX Hub, whether you follow our social media, you will see tons of content celebrating not only the incredible journey of our organization, but the incredible story of digital employee experience itself. Stuff that looks back at where it comes from, stuff that looks forward to where it's going. And there's really a lot of exciting stuff planned. And we have a fantastic anniversary show for you today with an amazing guest. I'm joined with, as ever, by Tim Flower, of course. Hi, Tim. How you doing?
Good, Tom. How about yourself?
Very good, man. Very good. Happy Nexthink birthday to you, I should say,
Likewise.
Likewise, yeah. And we are joined by Alain Nicod, founder and senior advisor at VI Partners. And Alain was actually the first ever investor in Nexthink history. So he's gonna bring us all the way back to the very roots, the fascinating roots, as we'll hear, of the organization. And we look forward to hearing more about that momentarily. But first of all, welcome, Alain. Beautiful to have you here.
Thank you. I'm looking forward. It's a great anniversary.
A really great anniversary. And if people don't know, I think a lot of people might who listen to the show, but Nexthink actually starts with Pedro Barros, our founder, CEO, back at the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, or the EPFL, as it's known locally in Lausanne, Switzerland. And if I'm not mistaken, Alain, that's where you met him. But before we get into that, maybe just to first of all hear a little bit about yourself and your career from your academic background and your experience as an investor.
Well, thank you very much. I started in a very classical way my career. I was born and raised in Lausanne, actually, so really where the Nexthink was born also. Started doing studies in business school and undergrad and grad. I did an MBA at INSEAD. I went to work for Arthur Andersen for a while, and then for McKinsey for a while. It was not what I was thinking of doing at the beginning. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but for some reason I joined those companies and I didn't regret it. It was a fantastic, in total, 8 years of corporate career, and that was the end of my corporate career after that. When I quit McKinsey, I became an entrepreneur. First company was in the field of physical medicine and sports medicine, and then I shifted attention to more the internet and telecom and software businesses. Since then, I've been a bit of a jack of all trades. I've invested in a multitude of different companies. I've been a creator, founder of a few also. I've been the CEO of a few. So I've done a bit of everything in my life. And I met actually Pedro as the managing partner of a firm called VI Partners. We do early stage investment in Switzerland. And that's how I came across him. So that's with that hat on that we came together. And I'm otherwise on me. I have 3 children, and I'm now a grandfather, which is quite an experience too.
Incredible! Congrats, that's great. And so you weren't so going back to when you first met Pedro, and I think at the same time you also met Patrick Herzog, co-founder of Nexthink, and still a Nexthinker also to this day. So you weren't actually sort of at the EPFL yourself. You were already an investor. Is that accurate? What? Tell us about.
Well, I was an investor. I was running that venture firm called VI Partners, but we had our offices in the EPFL. So I was technically speaking an office neighbor of Pedro. Pedro was 1 or 2 floors above us. We were on the first floor, I remember, and I think he was on the second or third floor in his office. So we came together in that building, and we were introduced by a great guy whom I think Nexthink owes a lot to is Hervé Lebray. I don't know whether you're interviewing him, but it's wonderful person. He was in charge of tech transfer and relations with investors on behalf of the EPFL, and he put me in touch with Pedro. So, and we also saw each other in the corridors, obviously.
So you had an office there because it was just if you're an investor, an entrepreneur, it's a great place to pick up for new talent, I guess. Is that approximately right? Or is it
Exactly,
a
exactly.
bit
And
more
it was part
convenient?
of our job is doing the scouting and understanding what's going on. It's also doing the networking. I think a big portion of our business is not only spotting the right companies and putting some money in it, is also the whole networking that goes around it, to help them find talents, help them find investors, understand what's going on, be on the hand on the pulse, if you want. And I did have an office in EPFL for 21 years, and actually the one of the shareholders of the fund I was running at that time was the EPFZ, so the sister company or the sister school to EPFL, based in Zurich. They both belong to the Federal Confederation, but they were the shareholders, one of the founding shareholders of my fund. So I'm pretty close to that whole academic world, in spite of not being a scientist myself. So it's been a fun adventure with respect to that.
Amazing. And thinking back to when you first met Pedro, do you have a clear memory of where that was, when that was, and how that conversation went about, and what your first impressions were of him?
I don't remember where it was physically, whether it was in his office or mine or the coffee machine we had in the middle. That I don't recall, but I recall having met him based on Hervé's recommendation. I thought, wow, this guy is really interesting. You know, sort of. He comes from a very academic background. He's been in Switzerland for that time, probably a year or two. I don't know how long. And or maybe 3 years. He was doing his PhD work, and he's courageous. I mean, he's trying his company, and I have a lot of admiration actually for, in general, in Switzerland, for all those foreign students that come in and end up creating companies. I mean, they are the bulk of the entrepreneurs in our country, and he was a typical example: young, fresh, a lot of charm, a lot of energy, a vision, and you know, just wanting to go forward, and a lot of enthusiasm. So I do recall that first conversation, and we kept on talking regularly for probably a year or two before I invested, because first of all, I think we got along well, and secondly, it was an occasion for him to speak Spanish and for me to speak Spanish. So that put also a fun aspect to it. We did communicate mostly in Spanish at the beginning of our endeavor.
I was going to just put in before hand the mic over to Tim for a second. Because always interested me, I think Pedro, you know, as a postgraduate, as a student, had his eye sound. It always sounds like when you speak to him, had his eye quite firmly set on academia, and then it was his own kind of innovation, discovery of his own ability to innovate that got him interested in the possibility of instead being an entrepreneur himself. It's the impression I've always had, anyway. I mean, where was he when you knew him in that dynamic? Do you know what I mean? Was he still vacillating between the two possibilities, or did he seem already quite firmly focused on entrepreneurship as a career path?
I think that step had been done. So
Yeah.
he was the Nexthink already existed, had been created. He was the main shareholder of. I
Sure.
think Patrick had a few shares of it too, and then I think then came Vincent and what's his name? I can't remember. It will come back. Another guy who joined right at the beginning, and I think he had done that step. What the step he hadn't done, and that was fun in our discussion. I can recall that because we had it again and again and again. It was, should I be the CEO of that company or not? And I was saying, you know, if you're an entrepreneur, you better be your CEO, and you'll see it maybe in the future. You'll step down or step up or to the chairmanship or whatever. But for the time being, I mean, you're the one driving the thing, so might as well sit at the steering wheel and drive the thing, right? And
Yeah.
that was a question that he had on a regular basis, saying, well, I'm not really sure, and I'm not sure I'm the right person, and maybe we should hire somebody, and et cetera, et cetera. That discussion went on forever. And finally, he decided to become the CEO himself, and that was the right decision.
So, Alan, I love the opportunity to talk to somebody who's witnessed the change in the technology. 80% or more of the great next thinkers we have started after me, and they've got a great perception of the product, but you were there from the very early part of the technology. What are your recollections of that early tech? Did you see it before it became a product? Talk about a little bit about what you remember from the very early parts of the technology and what impressed you.
Well, the it was based on academic work that he had done together with Patrick. And I remember they were showing me in a sort of we can detect on an intranet abnormal behaviors. That was the whole pitch at the beginning. And so the next question is, what do you do with that? So it's interesting. What do you do with it? And they said, well, there's a lot of security breaches and issues that you can detect with that, which is true, and still is true today. And that I thought was an interesting thing. And then there was a fantastic GUI, the graphical user interface that I think Patrick really masterminded. That was very attractive because it made that pretty complex thing pretty simple. And you could detect the issues and the things that were not exactly right and that needed investigation and all the rest. I thought this is, makes complicated things very simple, which I think is a great merit in life. So that was the initial thing. And at that time, they had two customers. I think this prescription, we can talk about that. It was Rolex and Pictet. I spoke to both of them, especially with the Pictet people, because they were also a shareholder. You mentioned EPFL, but Pictet was also a shareholder of the fund. And they were saying it's interesting. I mean, it took them time to become a real customer because they are, very picky on their technologies and what they do with the IT and whatever. But they thought it was really interesting. So it was very encouraging, the talks with them. And at that time, it was very much linked to security, which ended up not being the main value proposition. So it took then some time to pivot the pitch and focus on other things where the product has more immediate value for the clients. So it was very interesting. It was a very, very fun part of the life of the company.
And it's neat to look back over 20 years. You've witnessed some significant amount of change. What are your recollections or memories of some significant milestones over the 20 years, both either with the relationship with the company or the development of the technology? What do you see as some of the major milestones along the way?
Well, it's obviously, I mean, the first thing is, find a new relevant, the positioning of the product and value proposition. That was, and it took a few iterations. It's not like we snapped the fingers and it happened. I mean, it took a few iterations. Then the fun thing was when we started getting big projects. I think the first 7-digit project, if I remember correctly, was the French Army of all things. I mean, that was a weird thing. I mean, we had the chairman of the board who was also active in the company, Philippe Herriès, and a gang in France that were very active in all those governmental and large enterprises, and they landed that thing, which was the weirdest contract you could imagine at the time, for the Swiss startup to be entrusted by the French army to do something really critical in their networks. And that was the first big turn. So it was, it's becoming serious, guys. Hey, and then obviously it's a complicated client, so we had issues getting paid and on time, and then we had to do the bankers with the company because the cash flow was not working the way it should have worked because they were too slow in paying, and et cetera, et cetera. So that was the first big sort of industrialize the product and make it big and be able to sell it to large clients. And then the next step is obviously when the company starts growing. Some people grow with the company. I think Pedro is a good example. I mean, he grew with the company. I mean, it was a joint at that time, and it's a sizable thing, and he's still doing a very good job. Some others were, I wouldn't say left aside, but were sort of running into more difficulty in finding their new position. So that was the next big step in changing the C-level people and doing good hires and mishires. We did both of them. We had some great people joining and some not great people joining, and starting again and start again and start again and start again. That was interesting. So that was a period of challenge. Then the early years were not simple. So it was not simple to raise money and to raise money at accretive terms, sort of increase the size of the rounds and the size of the valuation every time. So we went through a few iterations and took time, and And I remember we had a discussion. I can't remember the dates of that, and Pedro might laugh when he hears that. We had an industrial buyer who offered us, I think it was 100 million, or just above 100 million dollars or Swiss francs. I don't remember that. For the buying us, and we're so should we do it? Should we not do it? It's fun when you think about that the fact that offer is dwarfing anything that happened since then. But at that time we did consider it, and because it was the first offer we had on the table, and we had to take it seriously, obviously. And then we started fundraising for bigger rounds, and then the arrival of Highland was a big milestone in the company, because they brought a totally different perspective and much more means. Then the arrival of Index was again a different step. And then I followed less the next arrival, because I quit the board at that moment. So I've been less in the hand on the pulse of the company since the arrival of Permira. So, but before it was every round, every new set of client, every opening of countries. I mean, it's funny when you ask me the question. I'm thinking, there was a period of time where Middle East was a big thing for us. It did represent a sizable portion of our revenues for a while. It's a weird thing to happen. Why did it happen? Because we had one or two guys that were good at finding clients in that part of the world, like we had in France. And a lot of those startups lived through those periods where you draw the target around the arrow, not the arrow. You don't throw the arrow into the target. And we had a bit of that at the beginning, which makes it fun. I like it. I think it's part of the life of a company like that.
Yeah, so much of that resonates with me as an enterprise IT guy. My first introduction to Pedro was in 2010 or 2011. He came out to the US, and the pitch was very different than it is today. And it really didn't resonate with me in terms of something I should buy or why I would get value out of it, how I would use it. It was analytics, and I didn't really need analytics. And 2 years later, I found myself in a world of hurt with my enterprise and went back to Pedro and said, excuse me, I could use some of those analytics now. And we bought it and became a customer in 2013. And by 2015, I had decided to come over and become an Nexthinker. So the evolution of the pitch, even since I've gotten here, I think is even more, it matches what the product does, and it really highlights the vision of what we think IT is going to look like. How do you kind of, what are your thoughts about now seeing Nexthink past that, or come up to that 20th anniversary? There's got to be a certain sense of pride with it.
Yeah, it's great to see the company. It went through it went through the usual, infancy, teenage, revolution. It went through all the stages, and now it's a young adult company, and I think it's pretty much behaving like that. I mean, again, I'm less close to it than I used to be at the time, but I see it now evolving like a real company, after having gone through all the creative, rebellious, whatever it is, at the different stages of its life. So I'm very proud to see it grown up and basically having its own life now. I do claim some ownership in having it started, but now it's really it's running under its own responsibility, and it's wonderful to see that.
And I love the visual of drawing the target around the arrow. When I came over in 2015, there were 10 of us in the US, and it was very much the same thing. We'll talk to anyone who wants to talk to us and evangelize this thing and see if we can start to make some inroads. And now it's just it's such a, in many ways, it's such a different and mature company, but Pedro has, and the leadership team has really kept the culture, the values of the company. That's why I like him as the CEO. It's his baby, and he makes sure that he takes care of that. It's really neat to see. Why do you think Nexthink has been so successful? There's so many startups that don't make it, that either the leadership team disintegrates or it doesn't make it through its next stage. What do you think it is about Nexthink that makes it successful?
I think, first of all, I mean, obviously, the first obvious question, that the answer is the people. I think Pedro is quite exceptional Patrick has proven to be a great contributor. I think Vincent has done a lot, even if he's not there anymore. He's been a great contributor to the company, etc., etc. So the people were the right ones. Then they obviously chose the right investors. That's obvious what I'm saying there. But it matters because they managed to raise more funding than they ever thought they would have to, and that's not simple. And they did it because they have a good value proposition, and the client buy the services. It's very low churn, etc., etc. So that I think is a very important point. I always like to remind. I mean that I think I gave an interview or speech. I don't remember the 10th anniversary, the 15th, and I dug out and I still have it. I mean, it's a very nasty document. It's the initial business plan on which I invested in the company, and I always quote that it's it was quite correct. There was only 1 zero too much on the sales and 1 zero too little on the expenses, but otherwise it was good.
It's just one decimal
obviously, point. Obviously, when that happens, I mean, you need funding because obviously there's a gap, and they managed to do it. They've always managed to raise money and attract good investors, and I think all the rounds we all did our job. I mean, we did our job. Our French friends did their job. Then Highland did their job. Index, Premier. I mean, everybody has come in the right moment and brought value to the company. I think that's an important element. The product is I mean, the product is good because otherwise it wouldn't sell. So and it would be a churn. There is no churn. I don't know where the churn is now, but at the time when I left the company, the churn was positive. I mean, it was increasing the sales with the clients every year. So even it would compensate with a few losses. So I think the strong value proposition in the beginning was that it's a complicated product, but it was pretty simple to use and with good GUIs and interfaces and whatever. I think that matters. I think that they did right, and I think they had luck. I mean, certainly they were lucky on certain aspects. I don't know which ones, but find the right people and get the right customers and. So overall, it's really it's been a very nice ride, but it poses also the question for other entrepreneurs. 20 years is a long time if you think about the first round investors. I mean, I invested. I don't know. It was not 20 years ago, but it was pretty close to 20 years ago, 17 or so, and. How do you deal with those kind of things? It's quite normal. I mean, I'm not saying they were slow. I think a lot of good companies take 10, 20 years to really become what they are. It causes a lot of problem for the investors. The first one, they have 10-year funds, and maybe the investment is done in the fourth year of the fund. So after 7 years, you go and see the CEO and say, "When are you selling?" And he said, "Nothing in sight, my friend." So how do you deal with that? And I think we were lucky to manage that properly. I mean, VI came out in the secondary transaction in very decent terms. I mean, I don't think we should have sold, but we did it for all kind of reasons. I didn't sell my shares. I'm still a personal shareholder there, and I'm happy to be there. And then Origa came in, and they managed to make sure that they can sit on the horse a long time. I don't know how our friend Granger managed that, but he did a good job. And then Highland has a long-term vision. Index has a long-term vision. So I think that's also been a very good way to manage the company. They attracted people that can cope with the fact that it's lasting much more than the usual 5, 7, 10 years that a startup goes through.
And Alain, when you look at that journey and you think back to what Nexthink was 15 years ago, 20 years ago, do you find where it is now to be recognizably itself, or do you feel that so much time has passed, it's scaled so vastly that it's effectively transformed into something that's completely distinct?
No, I don't think it is distinct. I think, first of all, I think the when you still have the founder in the company, there is each company has its own personality, right? And then it starts with the boss. And I think the fact that Pedro has been there for 20 years guarantees that there is some continuity in that. Now, can I say it's exactly the same mentality now than it was 5 or 10 years ago? Probably not. But I'm not very well based to give a judgment on that, because I'm only seeing what I see from Nexthink through some reporting I get on a regular basis as a small shareholder, and a few discussions I have with Pedro and some existing or alumni of the company. So I don't have a hand on the pulse for the last, I would say, 5 years now, but I think that the spirit has vastly stayed the same, of what I understand. The next thinker mentality. I'm glad to be I still consider a next thinker on Strava. I'm one of the Strava next thinkers.
I'm going to say next thinker emeritus, I think they might
say. Exactly.
Yeah. So you as you mentioned at the top of the discussion, you're a native of Lausanne, and it's a place next thinkers get a chance mostly to visit now and then, at least. And it's got a very interesting atmosphere, a very interesting kind of cultural and economic history. How do you think the place itself influences the spirit of a company?
Well, I apologize in advance for a very biased response I'm going to give you.
You're all good. Don't worry.
I have a vested interest in Lausanne. I really like my region, and I'm very thankful for having been born and raised in that part of the world. I think it has a lot of good aspects for entrepreneurship. It's a nice place to live, and I think that matters. You don't want to live in a rat hole in life. So, and this is everything but a rat hole. So I think and a lot of people that are entrepreneurial also, not all of them, but a lot of them enjoy a bit of nature and a bit of nice atmosphere outside and whatever. And it's so easy to drive out of the city and do a few things on weekends, on evenings, or whatever. So I think it's a nice environment. I think one of the very strong points in our part of the world, and there's a few other pockets like that in the world, but this is a very exceptional one, is that we cater for a huge percentage of foreigners that bring a lot of value to the country because they are creative, because they are entrepreneurial. And Pedro is a good example. I mean, he's a wonderful acquisition for the country. Have people like that come in and do their stuff is a blessing. And I think we welcome them reasonably well. I'm sure we could do better, but in general, they're well received. They get some, subsidies and stuff. I think the creation of Nexthink was difficult, like every new creation of a company. But I guess I don't know what Pedro will say about that, but I guess he will say that he was welcomed and he got some grants and stuff, and then found some investors, and the whole process was reasonably smooth. I think another aspect in our country is a hire fire is easy. I mean, it's very easy in the US, but in some European countries, it's more complicated. And when you start a company, the last thing you want is to have people that are stuck to you and you stuck to them. I think that the whole thing needs to be fluid, and that's the way it should work. And I think Switzerland allows that to happen very well. So that is certainly a value for startups. I think we need to also consider the education level. There's an extraordinary thing in Switzerland that no other country can claim, none. Is 50% of students in Switzerland, university students, are in one of the top 100 university in the world. EPFL is one of them. So it's extraordinary, and it's free, and it's basically free. I mean, it costs a few $1,000s a year. I mean, it's the cost of living is high, but the university itself costs nothing. So it's quite extraordinary to have such a big concentration of leading universities and top class students worldwide top class students rubbing shoulders. And I think that is a great opportunity to create stuff. And Lausanne is one of the 3 hubs in Switzerland. There's really 3 hubs that where a lot of things happen. Is the big Lausanne area, and some would argue it extends to Geneva and to Valais and whatever, but that whole region has a critical mass of entrepreneurs now, Zurich has one for sure, and then Basel has one. And you have three extraordinary hubs. So I think this is also a good basis and for creation of companies. And I'm seeing now a lot of startups coming up which are really well thought through. I mean, and really well prepared, and CEOs that sometimes are repeat entrepreneurs, so they really know what they're doing. Investors start to know what they're doing. It's a critical mass of money. When Nexthink started, the numbers in Switzerland were around 200-300 million a year that was invested in VC in the whole country. So if you were raising 5 million, you were tapping on 1 or 2% of the total funding of the country. It's significant. Today, the total funding is around 2-3 billion, maybe more. So we're in a totally different league now than we were at the time that Nexthink started. But I think Nexthink, I'm very grateful for, I'm not only proud and grateful that for Nexthink and that it happened, because it's a good example for the young people. Say, well, it can work. And entrepreneurs are optimists, so they look at the good cases and they forget the bad ones. So it's nice to have a good case like Nexthink that attracts the desire of younger people to do the same and even beat it.
Yeah, 100%. And if you're thinking about those younger entrepreneurs, if you had to wrap up your years of success and experience in this space, which 3 lessons might you draw from Nexthink's success that you think entrepreneurs could take forward and could learn from? What would these be?
I would say the first thing is live your passion. If you have something that you really like, something you really want to do, something where you want to make a difference in this world, just do it. Go for it. If you're 25 or 30, you have nothing to lose. Basically, if it fails, it fails. I mean, you've learned something. If it works, it works. It's fantastic. So just do it. Live your dreams. Live your dreams. Stay young. Stay agile. Stay full of positive energy. That's the first thing. The second one is think long term. One of the mistakes I see quite often is they create a company and want to have an exit and this and that and blah blah blah. No, I mean it will happen if you're successful. Life will treat you well. So just think long term. Have a long term vision. Work with people that have a long term view, and don't bother about whether you're selling your company or not or whatever. Just make sure you're building a solid company. You're building a solid team, solid investors, solid network, basically. All the people around you should be people that are scalable, that are genuinely supporting you, etc. And think, long term, basically. And the third one is it's part of the second, also maybe a bit redundant. I would say is build a solid team around you, both the C levels and your co-founders and whatever, and build people. Try to recruit people that are even better than you. I mean, it's ideal. It's easy to say, it's not easy to do, but recruit people that are really great caliber. And if it doesn't work, just operate the change. It's painful sometimes, but it has to be done. And the upwards management is make sure you have a board that is constructive, and the board is often delegates of your investors. So be careful if you have the luxury to do so. That's also a question. Can you pick the right kind of investors with whom you'll be happy to work and happy to build a company and happy to listen to or exchange ideas. I don't think we should listen to investors, but we should exchange ideas with them and have people that are capable of helping you build your business rather than nagging you or whatever it is. And not simple to do all those things, but some people make it, and Pedro did it.
Excellent advice. And And what really stood out to me there, I have to say, Alan, was hire people better than yourself. Clearly, that's what Pedro did when he hired Tim.
I was going to say
Yeah,
the
is
same.
that right? Is that right, Tim? It was a direct hire. Am I
That's
mistaken?
funny.
I think not. I think not. But no, salient advice for for entrepreneurs, and absolutely wonderful to walk down memory lane with you there. I love
that.
stories of Nexthink roots. They're ever so interesting. And it is an organization to this day that retains its soul. And I think you're absolutely right. That has a lot to do with still being led by a founder CEO, but it also has a lot to do with the people it's attracted along the way, the place it comes from, the ideas and the passion that inspired it way back when. So thank you so much for coming on the show and telling us that.
Pleasure.
It's been lovely talking to you, sir.
Pleasure. It was a fun, good memories for me to go back to those time of the creation of Nexthink. It's a great, nice, successful story with people I really appreciate deeply.
Excellent. And for listeners, so they're going to be, as I mentioned at the top of the discussion, there going to be some very special other episodes of the DEX Show this month to mark this anniversary. And go on our socials, go on the DEX Hub, and you'll see some fantastic contributions to the celebrations there also. Alan, Tim,
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
I'm looking forward to that.
Thanks,
Excellent.
Alan.
To make sure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast player. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure to leave a rating of the show. Just tap the number of stars you think the podcast deserves. If you'd like to learn more about how Nexthink can help you improve your digital employee experience, head over to nexthink.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.